Good evening, everybody on Facebook Live. My name is Sean Roby. I'm the Executive Director here for the Tinley Park District. This is our third town hall. We still have 3 additionals coming up after this, but wanted to take an opportunity to welcome you, as well as welcome those in the crowd. For those of you who may or may not be aware, obviously if you're in the room or watching this, you're aware that we have a referendum coming up. The question is a statutorily written question. We had no ability to put the why in the question, like why are we asking this question? Which is the purpose of this meeting, is the fact to just kind of let you know what we're doing, why we're doing it. So when you see the question and you think to yourself, why would somebody do that? We didn't choose to do it that way. We were allowed to change numbers and dates. That's it. Why are we asking the question? That's a pretty simple answer, in that for 20 years we've been paying off debt associated with the construction of the water park, the rec center, the fitness center. And an estimate, in actuality, you pay about $2.3 million annually to that debt in the form of bonds. We're retiring all of the bonds, which means they'll all be paid off this year and next completely. So in essence, your tax bill is going to fall about a third. So the Park District knew that was coming, and so at that point, it was decided that we were going to ask the taxpayers, instead of doing bonds going forward, which many districts do, we thought it'd be a fiduciary duty of ours to ask you if we could convert 44% of what you pay in that today, which is about $980,000, to our capital and long-term maintenance items. We know through basically looking at what we bring in every single year, how much money we need to cover the capital items and the long-term maintenance that we're talking about. So in that, the capital items that I'm referring to will be like renovations of Veterans Park. We're about to wrap that up. It's at the corner of 159th and Ozark. It's the brand new Veterans Memorial. Prior to the renovation, literally the playground, the tennis courts, the basketball courts were in shambles and needing repair. So the park needed to be replaced. And so those are kind of the capital items we're talking about. On top of those items, you have playground replacements. We have 32 playgrounds. So if you just do 2 a year, you have a 16-year window before you replace something. They only have a useful life of 20 years. Therefore, when you get toward the end of the useful life, they really start to deteriorate, things start to break more often and become a bigger maintenance problem, and they become a hazard, a safety hazard to those that are using them. Along the long-term maintenance items, it would be things like the roof of this building, parking lots, walking paths. All of those are maintenance items that we have to take care of over time. So we knew going into this, and it was kind of put into the plan that eventually we would get to this point, that it would make sense to ask the taxpayers to say, okay, we're about to retire all of your debt. You'll owe nobody anything from the Park District's standpoint. Your tax bills are coming down no matter what. Would the taxpayer consider the idea of paying 44% of what you pay today in that area? So, for instance, on a $100,000 house, or a $200,000 house, which is the average home in Tinley, you pay approximately $100 a year in debt service alone, the bond payments. We're asking to keep about $44 of that. You'll still get the $56 will come off your bill between this year and next, but we're going to reduce your bill considerably. I can't speak to the rest. I can only speak from the Park District side. Therefore, the bills are going to come down in the long run. We have this sheet that we've been passing around that's available online. It's available on your seats now for you to look at. That kind of just outlines the general questions. Again, like I said, the question itself is terrible. There couldn't be a worse question. When you read it, it doesn't tell you any of the why. So when you see that, it may be confusing, but the why is why we're having these conversations. On the back, you see kind of all the amenities that the Park District maintains, takes care of, and offers. We talk about the different capital improvements and long-term items, park renovations, playground replacements, pathway, parking lot repairs, building infrastructure updates, technology upgrades, green infrastructure, and we also give you kind of here's how your tax dollar is spent. Our tax dollars, the Park District currently gets of the last bill in 2017, about 4.56% of that. That's
Sean,
going to fall.
do you want to just tell people who are just joining us?
Oh, sorry. Welcome to those of you on Facebook Live. This is the Tinley Park District Town Hall meeting regarding the upcoming referendum. We're just kind of explaining the process and why we've come to this. The question of being as terrible as it is, as you can probably see it here, it's probably one of the worst worded questions in the world, but it's not something we can change. It's kind of what we're stuck with when we have to ask a question because of where we live. Therefore, there were only 2 questions, and the question we asked is the one that we gave you. So in essence, a third of your tax bill is basically dedicated to the bond debt, if you think about it. Depending on what you pay at your house, about a third of it goes to just the debt for the debt that was owed, the bond debt that we pay. So that's all being erased in 2019 and 2020. So we have to ask the question. It's more of a duty to make sure that we ask and be responsible as much as possible with the dollars that we have. Therefore, that's why we're at. So I guess with that, I'll take some questions, anybody that may have one.
Tell the people on Facebook they can.
If it doesn't pass, what happens?
Well, there's a myriad of things. We list on here one of the more likely items, which would be possible bonds to be sold. Therefore, we still need the $980,000. If it doesn't pass, we'll end up having to possibly bond this out. Therefore, you still need the $980,000, the issuing cost of the bonds, and then the interest costs associated with them.
So it's gonna cost us more to not vote this down.
Correct. If the bond is the way the board goes, that's exactly what the case would be.
Because why? You're paying a percentage of.
Because you're borrowing somebody's money to do it,
So-
as opposed to paying cash. So let me use the mortgage analogy.
Right.
You've got a 15, 20, 30-year mortgage on your house. You pay out you do your due diligence, you pay that off every single year, you get to the end of that, you make your last payment. Do you stop putting money aside to make repairs? You may not put the entire mortgage payment away, but you're probably gonna dedicate some funds knowing that, hey, we're gonna have to do roofs, we're gonna eventually have a furnace go out, we're going to have other issues that may come up, maybe we wanna put an addition on. It's kind of the exact same the exact same way we look at it here, is we're just kind of at that point where we're paying off our mortgage, we're done with it. It makes some sense to kind of go out to this process and offer the opportunity to the taxpayers to be better stewards with their money that they have today, as opposed to looking at it in the bond capacity. Many park districts bond things out. I just think that makes some sense to ask the question, and therefore the board thought the same thing. That's why we're out in front of the community to ask it.
And then the Whitewater Canyon and the fitness center, those are self-maintained, that money is self-maintained?
It's a good question. So we built these facilities with the funds that we're finishing paying off in many cases. So the fitness center, the Tinley Junction over there by McCarthy Park, the mini golf batting cages, the water park, they're 100% self-sustaining. So only the people that use them are paying for them. We don't use tax dollars to cover the cost of any of those.
Say that again?
So 100% of the operating cost, or for instance, let me narrow it down to the water park. We put in a brand new play structure last year. The year before, you got a brand new water slide added to it. Nothing that was put into that from operating or capital came out of the taxpayer dollars. It's completely paid for by the people who utilize the facility. Which brings me to the point that comes up a lot. They ask the questions about, they're curious why we allow non-residents to utilize the park. We use OSLED funds to build portions of that. Part of that is we can only charge double. We have to give more than just residents access. On top of that, we can only charge double what a non-resident or what a resident pays. So for instance, I believe—
And why is that? Because the state gave us money?
The state gave us money, therefore, once we use it, it's basically in perpetuity because you used funds to generate it. They have certain requirements. One of those are, you can't charge more than double to a non-resident that you charge a resident. So if I mess this up, I believe the going rate at the water park on the daily fee is $7. We can't charge more than 14, actually it might be 8 and 16. So I apologize if I've gotten that one wrong. But we can't charge any more than that to a non-resident. Therefore, that's kind of where we're capped in it. You've seen Orland, they have their fee structure slightly different, and I've heard a lot of people say, hey, why don't we do that? To get to those kind of fee structures, we'd have to raise our residential fees. We've been very fortunate because of the way that the water park and these items have been run for years, that 100% of their operating costs are taken care of by the people that use it.
Did Orland get money from the state to help build their pool?
I don't believe so.
So then they really can charge whatever they want.
They can, yes.
Okay?
And how about the Tinley Junction? I mean, is that really used a lot?
It's used enough to cover the cost.
Oh, okay.
But he said that's self-sustained.
Yeah, but that's batting cages.
Batting cages,
would
mini
be
golf,
there.
concession stand, all
Right.
covered by the people that are using it.
Right. 'Cause
And the concession stands are open for when adult softball?
Yeah, so
Or
I don't know if it
softball.
necessarily runs when a softball's open, but it's open when the golf course is open.
Right.
Therefore, when they come in the morning, so I can tell you from as a parent who's brought a child down to play soccer, when you're coming back from soccer, they're open and you can partake in it. My kids seem to love to do that.
Yeah, I know.
They get me every time we're on our way back from the field.
And what's an OSLID fund, or that word that?
The OSLED funds it's a state grant program that's run through the transfer tax. I don't want to get too far into the weeds for this one, but it's an open space and development grant, basically. We actually just got one for the St. Boniface renovation. That's kitty corner from Village Hall off of Oak Park. We just got a $400,000 grant for that project. And so the program left for quite a few years, and it's since been back. And so Tinley Park itself actually just got a grant. A few other communities around the local area got one as well. But that will recover a good portion of the cost associated with the construction of that park.
What percentage do you think people are gonna come out and vote on April 2nd anyways?
We have no clue.
You know.
If you follow the typical county, what the
Right.
county says, you're talking, I believe there's 30-some-odd thousand registered voters. They say about a quarter of them come out to vote for something like this. In this type of election, it's not a mayoral election, it's more of a kind of a local midterm. So you're probably looking around 8,000 probably at the top end.
Is this the only referendum that's gonna be on there, do you know?
The only one that I'm aware of is this,
Mhm.
and then just your park district your park district commissioners and your village trustees.
Okay. So no matter how we're gonna vote, our taxes are gonna come down a third anyways?
No, your taxes will come down. They'll come down a third if you say no initially.
Uh-huh.
And then the park district will take steps to figure out how we will overcome the deficit, the difference between
Because we're
how
all
we
looking
spend it.
for our taxes to come down.
100%. Everybody I can understand wants that one, but from the park district standpoint, your tax bill's coming down, you get to choose how much.
Okay.
So depending on people get to decide that.
Okay.
And so trust me, we understand it. I'm a taxpayer just like everyone else.
Right. That's all I need to know.
Well, for those of you that are,
So you said that our taxes are gonna come down, but you just mean the portion that goes to the park
the
district,
park district
right?
is the only one that we have any control over.
Okay,
So the 4.5% of your Tinley Park or your property tax bill is all that the park district represents. A piece of that is coming down no matter what.
someone wants to know, is a village employee asking these questions, appointment employee, and then another, same guy, is this a planted question? I'm not sure what question he's talking about.
No, nobody here's planted questions.
That's kind of an odd question.
No, because it's our
January?
profession.
So for those of you that are online, we'll have additional town halls. We have another one this Thursday at 7 p.m. at the Performing Arts Center. It's literally off of 80th Avenue, just north of 171st Street. It's in the Performing Arts building, so if you've ever been to McCarthy Park, that's where you will go. Pull into that parking lot, and then the Performing Arts building, as you're looking at the two buildings, is the building to the right.
Okay.
So I appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. Have a fantastic evening. Thank you.
Thanks.